So I would like to say thank you. Good day, everyone. It's an incredible privilege to be here on the first anniversary of 1KSA. And I think the Syngene team at the start of 2024 only was considered a team of a lot of rookies in terms of the whole genome sequencing discipline. And since I would like to show to you today, like Shane just spoke about impact, that the 1KSA initiative and ONT enabled us to make a giant leap forward to be a significant sequencing sample contributor in terms of plants. So, but just to understand, I need to give you a brief background what Syngene is about. And we have a very strong focus, R&D focus on finding genes and characterizing them that are responsible for important traits in crop plants that end up on our table as food. So that is our main focus. But with time, as effective service delivery component developed from our scientific outputs and also what became available in the public domain, like in publications. But up till 2024, when we got involved in 1KSA, our work mostly involved working with different genotyping platforms. And we certainly didn't offer any sequencing services to collaborators or clients. So in finding and characterizing genes over years in many different crop plants, we identified those genes and we actually want to clone these genes. And I just want to clarify the term cloning in this scenario. And that's where it's a whole process of identifying each base pair of that gene that are responsible for the trait. So you determine also the sequence of the whole gene, but also the protein it codes for, and for that you can then deduce a lot of its function. So that is where our R&D focus lie. But when we ended up targeting genes to clone, that was actually our first exposure to sequencing. And for that purpose, to clone a gene from a 14 gigabase genome is a massive undertaking. So for that purpose, we contacted the international leading experts who had all the sequencing platforms to support us with that. And we were fortunate that they also funded one of our staff members to spend 10 weeks there for bioinformatics training. And so that took us a lot, and that was our exposure to sequencing. But we've learned over years that if you need to really understand technology, it's important to dive in and get practically involved in a project and do the work yourself. And I would like to share with this infographic you sort of the timeline of our involvement then in sequencing. The pointer is working now. So the light yellow are sort of when we had crucial placement of instrumentation. And you will see in the period between 2013 and 2018, we focused on establishing high throughput SNP genotyping capacity and also automation in terms of extraction, because we work in the agricultural industry where large numbers are needed. And 2022, with the support of the barley industry and Diplomix, they each placed one MIC1C in our lab. So that was the first sequencing instrumentation in our lab. And then in 2024, January, we received our P2 solo. In 2018, the first wheat reference sequence genome only became available after a 10-year effort by multi-international groupings, sequencing all 21 chromosomes one by one. In 2022, when we had to sequence our wheat variety for the gene cloning attempt, all the sequencing was done at the one lab at KAUST, because of the incredible developments in sequencing technology and bioinformatics tools. At the same time, we started our own in-house sequencing project. It was a microbial study. I remember Lonnie coming through the first day. We had to load the flow cell, and we will use a PCR amplicon sequencing approach. Then in 2023, phase 1 of 1KSA started with the first plant species, speckboom, and we used the R9 chemistry to sequence on the MIC1C. Unfortunately, the error rate was still quite high and we had to do additional polishing steps. But roughly at the same time, Shane showed all the training initiatives. We had the opportunity to attend the training initiative in the Diplomix lab. We could do a sequencing run using R10 chemistry and the P24. And there was a major improvement in data quality having access to that. I forgot to mention in my slide, but with you, we're trying to publish that now. So if you need advice, we've been through this whole process now of submitting the data and the tags of 1KSA and everything. The paper is under review still. It's quite a challenge to get something published, but that is in review now. And then we started actually sequencing in January 2024 when we got our P2 solo. And now, less than 18 months later, and I can tell you, we also had a complete staff change between April and June 2024. We have now managed to assemble 25 genomes, which we submitted for SpeciCard publication. So last year at the launch, I was very nervous because then I just lost my staff. But anyway, and we also have quite a number of bigger genomes. We don't call these things big genomes that we managed to assemble. We have bigger genomes. We have all the raw data, but we're still waiting for a computing solution. So these data are stored in the RISA, and hopefully we will be able to assemble them soon. But we also, in 2025, secured funding from the barley industry to sequence 2 of our leading malt barley varieties. Now, barley also have a 5 gig genome. We extracted it in middle of April, and we already have 2 genomes assembled, and we're currently comparing their gene content, but their genes with each other. Yeah, so we're grateful to ONT and Diplomix for allowing us to get into this race, and we took it forward. And I'm also so glad to see some of our sample contributors here today. We received very interesting and important plant species, and it's exciting to work on these plants. We also mentioning of open science right from the start when we started extracting the speckboom methods, which we developed closely with our collaborators at JIC. We put it out, and as we improve, we update these methods. This is just our short workflow. I think as sample contributors, it was mentioned that it's quite a challenge to get the permit and documents in place. For us at Syngene, it's also to keep that plant alive. So we go to these gardens where our sample contributors submit the samples and we tag them, and often when the wind blows, I was just wondering where in the world are those tags of those plants. And then we also have, where we can, clones at Syngene, which add quite a lot of maintenance work, paying someone in December holiday to come and water these plants. We don't have a nursery, but we do our best. We also sampled dry leaves from the plants as they are submitted. So initially, in 2014, we didn't know about the exact guidelines how to sample. So just a warning for people working with plants. We uploaded it to Zenodo. SANBI has clear guidelines how much sample you need to sample and dry, which you can then submit, or should actually submit to the biobank. So this happens here at the start. So for us, that is quite a challenge. And the other thing is the size of the plant sometimes. We received a plant last week that is tiny. I don't know how we're going to get enough leaves from that plant. This is pretty straightforward, but We've developed also this data analysis pipeline, which we feel make a big difference, and that is including the K-mer analysis. So we only load one flow cell and then perform a K-mer analysis and then repeat it till we have enough data. And sometimes we have to go back to build a library, and that all has to do, it will become clear in the next slides, with the size of the plant genomes. And I want to use the wild cabbage as an example, and this is of how our work usually goes, and I just want to tell you this is really basically not exception. It is usually the norm if you work with plant genomes, what we experience here. So the brief from 1K is that your raw data should meet a Q score of 9, and the draft assembly a 95% Pascal and 20 times coverage of the genome. So if the genome size is not available on GOAT, we assume a 1 gigabase in the hope it's a small genome. We assume a 1 gigabyte genome and start working from there. So with the cabbage of the field, we didn't have any genome size available at the time when we started sequencing, and we didn't know about the K-mer approach yet. So we did our first flow cell. How do I go back? Sorry.
It's on the left-hand side. Is that one?
No, another one. Thank you. And we still at that point struggled to get a lot of output from a flow cell, so we don't regard that as good. But based on the 1 gigabyte base assumption, we should have 20 times coverage. So we started our fly assembly. But then we only obtained the 2 gigabase partial assembly, and we realized we had a much larger genome. And then at that point, we were introduced to K-mer peak analysis using your raw reads to estimate the genome size, which was a game changer for us. And obviously, when we put that data through, we didn't obtain a K-mer peak with that one flow cell of data. And that's the point where we started this flow cell to flow cell approach. And after the second flow cell, we already had 100 gigabase raw data, and a small peak started to appear. I'm not a K-mer analysis expert, but you need a proper peak there. And after our fourth flow cell, we had a proper peak and an estimate size of 12 gigabytes, so way bigger than 1 gigabase genome. And this is just the stats. Just go quickly back to the raw data. We had a nice N50 of 10 kb, a Q score of 13, and yeah, we got a 99% Pascal with a lot of duplication, which is now evidence for us that this is a fully collapsed genome and most likely a tetraploid. But then for us as rookies, this remains amazing, the size of the data you have to deal with. This raw data is about 2 terabytes, which is 2 hard drives of a routine standard laptops. And to upload it to the CHPC at the speed of 10 megabytes per second, it's almost 7 days. And the assembly took 23 CPU days and used 400 gigabytes RAM. So this is typically, if you want to work with plants, what you're going to experience. The extraction itself is also a challenge, and unfortunately we have developed now protocols that are all available, and we update them as we learn more. Plants are unique. They have cell walls, but they also differ in what they have in that cytoplasm and what methods you have to use, and you just don't know. But these methods, we can say, have worked for quite a range of diverse plant species. The genome sizes are often massive. That's the only word we can say. And the estimates that you get are often very off. So here are 2 of the Karoo bush that we sequenced. The estimate was 5.3 gigabases. It ended up being almost 15 gigabases. That one we estimate 1, it ended up 6.8 gigabases. We have an interesting situation here that in the same genus you get this massive difference where we sequence that one first we got a 17 gigabytes genome with 460 GB reads, but now we're struggling with another one. We're already at 600 GB reads, and we don't get the K-mer peak yet. So now we have this huge problem of the capacity at the CHPC when you analyze plant genomes. We're fairly comfortable to go up to 5 gigabases. Thereafter, we'll get to that. It can be problematic. And another thing is that I want to discuss in the next slide is if you have low N50s of the raw reads, below 2,000, we find it's not worthwhile to assemble. They're highly fragmented and result in very poor BASCO scores. We have seen 2 species thus far we work with. This is just one example. It was slightly smaller, estimated to be a 1 gigabyte base genome. We got fantastic DNA, very long 60 kb. We used a long fragment buffer, but we also tried fragmentation and not. And we ended up with 100 gigabyte raw sequence data before we got a K-mer peak. So we already had 200 times coverage, but then the genome, assembled genome was very fragmented, and the BASCO score less than 70%. So poor Elizabeth and Michaela really tried their utmost, so we got it up to N50 of above 3,000 kb, and then we could manage to assemble it. Below 2,000, you don't manage to assemble the genome, or we couldn't. The CHPC and the big plant genomes, in general, I say plant genomes are big. You run into wall time problems, and fly run out of RAM when you have that amount of data. So Wilco is experimenting also with diplomics with high FASM, and we have very positive outcomes for genome size between 5 to 10, which we will soon report on. And yeah, so at least we may overcome the limit of 5 and get to 10. But I think it is absolutely essential that we're seriously looking into increasing HPC capacity for the plant genomes to work on them. Shane, you will warn me, 5, okay. So we also submitted all our samples to the SANBI Biobank this year. You can go to that link where they provide their guidelines how to do it. So that's for future researchers that want to revisit the plant use sequence. They can sample the exact plant from there. And then I quickly want to share with you, in 2024 or the year 2023, Shane prompted me to look into a training initiative that was done in the UK, or is currently still ongoing in the UK, which they call the UK Daffodil Project. You can Google that because we don't have time now to go into that, and develop something similar for South Africa. So at the same time, we were learning to sequence in the beginning of last year. We decided to take 12 grade 11 life science learners with us and let them sequence one of the plant species. So it was 2 learners from 6 schools. They have only learned about cells in their classes, and they knew about DNA. I went a Sunday evening to their accommodation, and we did a practical with pipettes, because I've never held a pipette. They started that Monday morning with the exact protocols that all the scientists can access there on Zenodo. And they gave about 100 of their hours of their free time to visit Shenzhen twice during 2 holidays. So in the first March holiday, they did the extractions, and they did it. There were people that are witnesses to this. We didn't do it, they did it. Very dedicated, they were like sponges, really wanted to learn, and they were made fully aware of the cost and the privilege they have to be able to do something like this, because many tertiary students didn't have the opportunity yet to be able to do something like this. And they really rose to the occasion. They extracted DNA, each of them 2 tubes, And for you that knows this stat, there was just this one sample, and I still remember the girl's face when she saw this result. At least she had one good sample on the other hand. So they got excellent results for people never ever touching a pipette, but just listening and following our protocols precisely. And then in the July holidays, they came and our JIC collaborators helped us to train them. Obviously, you can't let them do the whole assembly. So we did the assembly beforehand, and then the steps were broken down, I presume, exactly like you did yesterday, to show them an input file and an output file that's done the next day, and they went through the whole process. And these learners amazed the trainers, because at day 3 they had to scramble to find more content to teach them. So they gave them Python and R scripting classes the next 2 days. And then they also developed their own PowerPoint. Obviously, I stepped in to help them. They've never presented a scientific project, so I had several meetings with them. But they developed their own PowerPoint presentation where they presented their results. But I just want to show you here. Look at their average Q score and a 98.8% BUSCO evaluation. So it was a wonderful outcome. Yeah, so they also, this is their slide from their PowerPoint. All I want to say is that I said, given the opportunity, anyone will be able to achieve big goals in science, regardless of age and background. Yeah, so I just want to say thank you. To have achieved this wouldn't have been possible for Sengen. We often apply a lot of pressure on the Diplomics team. So thank you for stepping up and coping and tolerating us and supporting us to achieve that. The Department of Science and Technology and Innovation, obviously the funding made an incredible difference. I have 2 of my staff members here, Alana. Alana's not here, but Michaela is here. Elizabeth is a co-presenter. And I also want to say thank you again to the Veldkos Field Food DNA project teams that were responsible, to Science Design for the beautiful logos and species cards, and obviously Oxford Nanopore Technologies, and again to our sample contributors. Thank you.